Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Will Thompson, United States Attorney for the Southern District of West Virginia. With me up here today, I have Pat Kelly from Homeland Security and Jennifer Harold, an AUSA with our office, who actually prosecuted this case we're getting ready to talk about. Just moments ago, Larry Clay was sentenced to 25 years in prison to be followed by 10 years of supervised release and ordered to pay $80,000 in restitution after he was convicted for sex trafficking of a 17-year-old minor female and then obstructing the resulting investigation. Mr. Clay must also register as a sex offender. Mr. Clay, at the time of the offense, was the chief of police for the Gauley Bridge Police Department. He was also a deputy with the Fayette County Sheriff's Department. Evidence at the trial proved that Mr. Clay paid a total of $100 to co-defendant Kristen Naylor-Legg to have sex with her 17-year-old minor female on two separate occasions in June of 2020. Now, a lot of times, and people who's covered me in the past will notice that I will brag about the teamwork and cooperation of law enforcement in prosecuting the case. And I'm going to do that because there was some really good teamwork and cooperation among the law enforcement agencies investigated this case. But I'm going to start out today by praising the teenage victim. She was a teenager at the time. She's a little bit older now. Victim of Mr. Clay. She's identified in court documents as C.H. I'm not going to identify her any further today out of respect for her privacy. This was a teenager, a little girl, who was basically sold for $100 to a law enforcement officer who was wearing his uniform, actually had his gun belt strapped onto him while he was performing sexual acts upon her. This little girl has been so patient, so strong. The amount of perseverance this little girl has is amazing. The fact that she was able to stand strong. She went through a trial. I've been a lawyer for a long time now, and lawyers, prosecutors, even defense lawyers are often hesitant to try a sex case because they don't want to have the victim testify at the trial because it's a horrific experience. They have to talk about the worst moment of their life in front of a group of strangers and then be cross-examined by a defense lawyer while the person who did this horrible act upon them is sitting watching them. This little girl was able to do that. She stood strong. She should be a hero. I view her as a hero. And the fact that she was able to see this prosecution through to its end is a testament to her. She is the hero here. She is the person who is making sure Mr. Clay I'll let the public decide what Mr. Clay should be viewed as. I don't view him as very much of a human who was able to take advantage of his law enforcement position. He was wearing a badge when this happened. She's the reason that he will not be able to inflict this type of damage upon any other little girls in our community. She deserves to be recognized as a hero. I do want to brag on the work that was done on this case. I want to start out with the Fayette County Sheriff's Department. Mr. Clay was a member of that department at that time. They did their job. They did what they were supposed to do. They investigated this case, handed it off to the state police. I want to brag on the West Virginia State Police. They did their job. They did what they were supposed to. And then they involved a federal agency, the Homeland Security, HSI. They did what they were supposed to. Then it came to our office. We did what we were supposed to. We investigated this case. We prosecuted this case. We did everything that needed to be done to bring Mr. Clay to justice. I could be nearing the end of my time as U.S. Attorney, and I want to reflect on one of the outstanding achievements I've seen of the office while I've been here. And that is, we hold people in authority accountable for their actions. It started out when I first got here. There was a police officer in Logan named Everett Maynard who used excessive force and beat someone very severely. There was Chris Osborne, prosecuted by this office, who actually was a witness in this case. He was prosecuted and was a Marmet police officer at the time, and prosecuted by this office, and is convicted and is now serving a significant amount of time. Not quite done with the case yet, but we have secured 7 guilty pleas of Southern Regional Jail correctional officers related to the death of an inmate there. So the fact that the office has been able to hold people in authority accountable is one of the highlights of my term of service as U.S. Attorney. Talk just a little bit about this incident itself. As I said, Mr. Clay, while wearing his Gauley Bridge Police uniform, his badge, his duty belt, his gun belt, the first incident happened on a rural Fayette County road while Mr. Clay was in his Gauley Bridge issued police vehicle. The second incident, that's bad enough. The second incident's even worse, I believe, because it happened at a basement office of the old Gauley Bridge High School, which the Gauley Bridge Police Department used as their office. This was where the second incident happened. Investigators, and this is a remarkable point that I want to bring out, they were able to recover an old washcloth there that was discarded by Mr. Clay that had DNA evidence that proved this incident happened. And this was a significant time period after that. So not only do I praise the investigators, I'm also going to praise the people who don't always get praised, and that's the people who do the lab work and the things of that nature. They were very helpful on this. There was Mr. Clay had help, and this is another horrific part of this story. There was a victim's stepmother, Christian Naylor-Legg, who was the one that actually set up this human trafficking sex event to happen. She was actually successfully prosecuted by this office and is now doing 9 years in federal prison because of this. But to have your own stepmother to sell you out is just another horrific detail in this case. And once again, is why the victim should be held out to be a hero. The victim's very strong in this case. She's my hero. She was sold out by her family. Her mother passed away several years before this. The one person that she was supposed to trust in her life was her stepfather at the time. He brings a stepmother in who's now doing 9 years in prison for selling her. That's horrific. The trial in this case happened in April of 23. It's a 4-day trial. He was convicted of sex trafficking of a minor by coercion ×2 and 2 counts of obstruction of justice. This is another area where I want to give praise to the law enforcement officers that were involved in the investigation of this case. Mr. Clay tried to use his position as a law enforcement officer to get people to make this go away, to get fellow law enforcement officers to see if you can take care of this. And a jury saw that, found that, and convicted him of that. This is a case that Mr. Clay is where he needs to be, at least for the next 25 years, and that's in federal prison. I think Mr. Clay did not accept responsibility. I don't know who all got an opportunity to watch in the courtroom. He did everything the exact opposite of trying to accept any responsibility. He tried to hinder and delay the sentencing in this case. He tried again today to delay the sentencing of the case. Thankfully, the judge saw through that and followed through with the sentencing, giving some closure to the hero of the case, that being the teenage victim. Want to give a shout out to the AUSA's my office. Jenny's handled most of the work on it. Monica Dillon was also helped with the trial of the case. This was a tough case. This was a long case. I mean, this was a long sentencing. This was a sentencing that took some time to get done. I'm going to attribute most of that to Mr. Clay. He was trying to delay as much as possible. And that being said, do we have any questions?
Was he out when he was sentenced? Is that part of the
No, he's been locked up even prior to the trial. Okay.
How was the fact that he was a law enforcement officer? How did that impact the severity of the sentence?
I think it did. There was some sentencing guidelines that impacted it, and plus the mere fact, he's a law enforcement officer. They're sworn to protect and serve. 99% of them do the great job, and it's a hard job to do. But the fact that he took advantage of his badge, I think, had a significant impact on the sentence he received.
What was the timeline? He was with Gauley Bridge, and then when did he go to the Fayette County Sheriff's Office?
I think he started with the Fayette County Sheriff's Department first, and then Gauley Bridge hired him a few years later. Now, he was a law enforcement. I don't know exactly when he started with the Fayette County Sheriff's Department, but he's what I would call a little bit later in his life. He didn't grow up as a police officer. I think he started in his 40s, I believe. Is that okay? As a police officer for the Fayette County Sheriff's Department, and then after being there a couple years, he was deputy sheriff, and then when he wasn't serving as deputy sheriff, was serving as chief of police of Gauley Bridge. So he was doing both roles at the same time.
Can you go into a little more detail about the obstruction? Like what exactly was the jury decided guilty of? What was the evidence?
I'm going to have you help me out if I mess this up. Basically, one of the counts was he went to a friend of his who actually did exactly, he was a member of the Fayette County Sheriff's Department, to try to make this go away. Trying to say this was all a misunderstanding or something of that nature. And what was the second one?
He also went to Kristen Naylor-Legg at the beginning of the investigation and told her to lie to them.
Yes, he went to, I guess you would call her co-defendant, the stepmother, and tried to get her to lie about the event. The stepmother did testify in this trial, and I think the testimony, the jury did use that in reaching its verdict.
I know that you've talked in the past about how the drug crisis and human trafficking are kind of two crises that have impacted and exacerbated each other. Was that a factor in this case?
Not really. Poverty might have been a factor in this case. There's an argument to be made that Mr. Clay also took advantage of the stepmother, Naylor-Legg. They were struggling financially, and an argument to be made that the money was used to buy food. So I did not see a lot of the substance abuse that we often see.
Do we think that maybe the Fayette County community and Gauley Bridge community will be able to heal now that the sentencing has taken place?
I certainly hope so. I think anytime you have a case like this, it can divide a community because, what happened here. I think the evidence in this case was overwhelming. Mr. Clay is where he needs to be for the next 25 years, and he certainly never needed to be a police officer, but unfortunately he was. So I hope that the community does start to heal. And more importantly, I'm going to go back to her because I think she's a hero, and I think she has started to heal, and I think today was a big step for her. The victim needs to start the healing process.
You mentioned other excessive force cases that I know your office has dealt with, and I know you've seen this as a judge.
Yes.
Every other capacity served. We see a trend often where one police officer maybe is not one of the good ones and is participating in bad behavior, maybe gets put off at one department and transfers to another, and that might not be the exact case here where someone came out and transferred, but is there a role for your office in trying to crack down on that and track that better
I think the fact that we have 10 people in my short period of time here now convicted. I don't want to say a lot about the guard cases because there's still one case pending on that and they're pending sentencing. But the fact we do take them serious. And like I said, here's a good example. We did the Everett Maynard case. That was the Logan police officer case. We did that fairly early while I was here, and my former role as a judge, living in a small town, I know a lot of police officers, and I was a little curious what the reaction's going to be when I went to my next high school baseball game and saw some of those police officers after they see me talking about the fact that we're putting a police officer in jail. And without exception, they were all extremely proud of what I did, because what they do, the people, these officers I'm talking about here, not only do they hurt themselves and hurt the community, they hurt every other police officer that's doing their job, which I will sit here and tell you is one of the hardest jobs we have, has been made even harder in the last couple of years with some of these bad acts, not only done here in this district, but across the country. And, the overwhelming number of them are just good people out trying to serve their community, and then they're getting mud thrown on them because of the people like we've prosecuted here and the people across the community. So it's been my experience that I was a little nervous when I went to that first high school baseball game to see what the reaction was be. It made me feel really good as a person. The fact that they were, I don't know, cheering on is not the right term, but the fact they were proud of the fact that we are taking care of the bad apples.
In this case, do you think there's been any other victims?
No, I mean, I hesitate to answer that. Not that we're aware of. Okay.
Were there any other people, I know in the initial filing, he tried to talk to one of his colleagues.
Yes.
And he agreed, but once he learned the age, backed down and said no. Was there an investigation of any sort of other police officers or associates that could have been involved in the trafficking?
With the exception of Mr. Osborne, who I've talked about, who was a witness in this case, and whose behavior in this case was not exemplary. It was actually the exact opposite. My view of the investigation was the Fayette County Sheriff's Office and their employees did what they were supposed to do. The West Virginia State Police and their troopers did what they were supposed to do. HSI and their agents did what they were supposed to do. So Mr. Clay tried to put them in a bad spot and tried to get them to do bad things, but they all were good police officers and did what they were supposed to do.
What was his maximum penalty? I know that depends on a lot of factors, but what was it? How does that compare to what?
It could have been a life term.
If there's anyone out there who's like the victim who has had anything like this happen to them, what are the steps that they should take?
Contact law enforcement. The overwhelming, like I said, the overwhelming number of law enforcement personnel in this district, in this state, are the good people. If they don't feel comfortable talking to their law enforcement, our telephone's number is 304-345-2200. Call us, call me. But I will say law enforcement in this district, in this state, with few exceptions, as I named here a minute ago, are part of the good people. Other questions?
Is there anything you would like to just say, as far as, you've gotten them off the street and just the fact that, we are attacking this problem?
We are attacking this problem. The one thing I would like to say, and this, once again, to reiterate how much I feel the victim and what strength she has shown, she's also shown a lot of patience. This happened a while ago. I mean, it's June of 2020, so more than 4 years ago. So she has shown patience. Federal investigations take some time. Sometimes even the U.S. Attorney gets frustrated how long they take. But be patient with us, but tell us, report it. We can't do anything about things we don't know about. So if you think you are a police officer's out there violating your civil rights, doing things to anyone, but more importantly, doing a thing to kids, we want to know about it. I'm going to praise her once again, but I'm going to encourage, if there are any other people out there, get hold of law enforcement, get hold of us.
And the fact that he chose his cruiser and office, I mean, did that help you all take him down?
First of all, I find it disgusting. I find it disgusting that he is paying for a sex act with a child while wearing a uniform and a badge and a gun belt. I mean, that's a horrific image. But it also did play some factor with us as far as sentencing guidelines and what we could charge him with and things of that nature. I mean, this still would have been a crime if he was not a police officer. I want everybody to understand that. This would still be a crime if he was just a person on the street. But the fact that he was using a police cruiser and a police office while wearing a uniform, a badge, and a gun to do these horrific acts, that just bothers me. And I'm sure it bothered a jury, and I'm sure it bothered a judge, and that's why Mr. Clay will not be walking as a free man for the next 25 years.
So in the event that Clay sees these stories tonight on television, he will hear you, and if you'd like to talk directly to him, what would you say? Appropriate for television?
Good answer. Good way to phrase that question. I will say that Mr. Clay's exactly where he needs to be, and he needs to stay there for as long as he can possibly stay. That he never should have worn a badge, never should have worn a gun, and I will rest easily as I put my head on a pillow tonight that he will be putting his head on a pillow in a correctional facility for the next 25 years.
You may have mentioned this, and I apologize if so, but was it the victim who came forward in this case, or did y'all hear about it from the sheriff's?
The victim reached out, and then we didn't hear. Victim didn't call us, but law enforcement got hold of us. But the victim did what she was supposed to do. She was 17 years old. She didn't have any family. She is a pillar of strength in this case. I think I made that obvious, my thoughts on it, but she really was. I mean, she had nobody. Her stepmom was the one selling her. Where she put her head on a pillow that night was the person who was then turning around and selling her. So the fact that she had that strength to come forward is amazing.
Do you all have confirmed that she did get the money, or was he like, oh, I still owe you for that?
She did not get the money. Christian Naylor Legg got the money, the stepmom. So, yeah, that's even more horrific.
Part of the sentencing was that Mr. Clay is going to be paying the $80,000 for the victim for schooling.
Right.
And is there a deadline, when that needs to be paid out? Because it seems like in a courtroom he does not have a lot of.
We have what's called a financial litigation unit in the U.S. Attorney's Office, and they will be very busy long after I'm gone from here of making sure we collect as much of or all of that $80,000 we can. It's a wonderful program. It's not talked about a lot. We have, I think, 5 people working on it. A couple lawyers, a couple paralegals, and a legal assistant. That's their mission in life. That's their mission in this office, is to collect, not only on this specific case, but all cases. And my guess is they'll be a little bit extra motivated on this case to try to get as much of that money as possible for her.
That figure was 80,000.
80,000. Mm-hmm. Anything else? All right. Thank you all very much.